I'm Jerome Manigan. The program is Community Connections, and we're continuing with the conversation I had with Michelle Weber and Rose Christian. And today we're joined by Ron Calhoun. And I think that's where we want to start today's program, talking with Ron Calhoun. You will remember our last program ended with Rose sharing with us some of the resources and the work of heroin recovery for you. And we'll get back to that because we want to hear more about what you are doing. But we now have Ron with us, and I would like to hear from him. He is joined with your program, Rose, but he also has his own program.
Yes, sir.
So let's hear about Heroin Doesn't Care.
Heroin Doesn't Care has a Facebook page and a website, and we try to, when people find out information, the first question is what I do now, and that's what I try to do. We try to make videos, we try to write blogs and articles, post information about here's what you need to do next, here's what you need to do now.
So tell us about that. Someone accesses your page and give us the address.
Well, facebook.com/heroin doesn't care, no spaces, just one word. And the website is heroindoesn'tcare.org, and there is no apostrophe, it's all one word. On the Facebook page, we people come in, they like the page. We do a lot of news articles, local, sometimes federal, about what's happening as far as the government or treatment options that are opening up. And we try to answer with articles that we find other places, what is it we need to do next? How do we find detox? How do we find long-term recovery? How long-term is long-term? So we try to answer those questions, or at least point people to the direction where they can find that information.
Treatment options. Talk to me about treatment options. What treatment options are out there?
Well, when a person decides to quit heroin, or if they're intervened and they're required to do this, they have to detox first. That's usually 7 to 10 days. Some places only do it 3 days, but it's better to do 7 to 10 days. After this, we get short-term recovery, and that's when they're in a place where hopefully there are no drugs and they can kind of begin to clear their mind. During that time, they can go cold turkey or they can take medication, medically assisted treatment, MAT. So MAT, medically assisted treatment, could be Suboxone, it could be Vivitrol, and these are, and methadone is the one that's been used the longest. Methadone, you don't get high on it, but you do become addicted to it. It's very hard to come off. So we try to avoid that, but it might be the only way. Suboxone is a medication that you have to take every day, and it does get to be bothersome, especially to young people, that they get annoyed. They have to take this every day. But you cannot overdose on Suboxone because it actually contains naloxone, so it counteracts the effect. But it keeps your cravings down and it helps you to not get dope sick. And the third one is Vivitrol. And of course, you have to go through detox on this. But Vivitrol, even though it's expensive, it's a good treatment because it blocks the receptors. So if a person takes Vivitrol, it lasts for 28 days. And if, let's say, on day 7 or day 14, they decide, the cravings get too bad and they take a hit, they will not get high. But I'm told that it actually really, really helps control cravings so that they don't want to take it. So Vivitrol, it's between $800 and $1,200 a month, which is expensive. We hope if it's used more, it will become less expensive. And that's the one drawback, is the expense. But we're hoping that the expense will come down. There are a few people who have taken it, said it made them ill. They have to do something else. Suboxone is about $300 a month. Methadone is about $10 a day, or about $300 a month. So there is that medical treatment, but there are people who go cold turkey with no medical treatment at all. One of the other things after short-term treatment is long-term care. Sometimes that's inpatient in a facility where they stay as long as they really need to stay. Sometimes it might be for 3 or 4 months. Then you have IOP, which is intensive outpatient. So they're taking their medication, they're going to their meetings, they're seeing somebody, and it's an intensive effort, but they're not living inside of a facility at that time. So those are some of the treatment options. Last, I think it was last June, Rose and I were at an event. A young lady comes up. She's a heroin user, and she does not use intravenously, but she snorts it. But she's afraid she's going to start using intravenously. Now, understand, this is a heroin rally. We have people from all sorts of organizations. If there's any place you're going to get help, it's us, right? We worked for 30 minutes to try to get her in detox and couldn't find a place that would take her. And we've got people calling all over the state. We actually had people call Tennessee, and they could not find a place to take her. Well, finally, after about 45 minutes, we had a place that we might be able to get her in. By that time, she had left. So I hear all the time, they have to want help. Well, I need to help them when they want it, don't I? We need to help them when they want it. And that's, you asked about what are the treatments. We do have treatment out there, but we got to have more because we've actually got people wanting treatment and they're being told you're not bad enough, so they leave the hospital. There's actually hospitals that have told people, they come in and say, I'm a heroin addict, I'd like to help, and they go, well, you're not bad enough yet. Well,
What
why?
is bad enough?
Well, you have to be overdosing. And then they'll keep them for 3 hours. You see, that this epidemic has become so bad that it's beyond the ability of our medical community right now. I don't blame the medical community. They just don't have the resources. They do not have the places to put all the people. They don't have the resources. We as a community have to get behind that.
I am still not understanding what has made heroin an epidemic. Still not understanding why heroin is so attractive.
Okay, here's one thing that might help out. A lot of kids, they get addicted to opiates. They have an injury or something, they get addicted to opiates. Well, opiates on the street are expensive. Heroin is cheap. So what the people do is when they go to get the opiates, oh, well, we don't have none of that, but we've got some heroin here, just snort a little bit of this, and you'll see all your pain go away. That's how they are getting started on heroin. They're addicted to opiates. They're addicted to medications. A lot of the kids nowadays, they have what they call mix-it parties, where they sit there and come. Everybody brings whatever drugs they could find out of their medicine cabinets at their house. And, it's like a trail mix. Everybody has to keep going in and closing their eyes, picking something, taking it. And they're addicted. In schools, what they're addicted to is like the over-the-counter cough syrups, corticosteroid, anything that has the antihistamine in it to give them that upper to be able to make it through the class. So this is what all the ones they're starting on that takes them to heroin.
But what you're describing to me suggests that there is something deeper going on than just a drug addiction. It sounds to me as if these are individuals who have emotional,
Right.
maybe even mental health issues.
Right. Some of them do, but most of them, it's just once they start taking all these medication and these pills, it's hard now, since we have the new laws in Ohio, that you are getting monitored on getting so much medication and Oxycontin, oxycodone, and to get them on the street, it is very expensive. Well, they're going through so much withdrawals that the dealers are going, here, I'll give you a freebie, try this. This will help you out, and it's a lot cheaper than you trying to get the pills. Well, they start using it. Oh, yeah, no, this is great. This is helping out perfect. Well, then they get immune to it, and they have to start shooting it up.
I was not a great fan of Nancy Reagan's campaign to just say no. I don't think it's that simplistic.
Right.
I really don't think that it's just easy to say no. Okay. But I do wonder if many of the people who are addicted are not complicit in their addiction.
Well,
They are.
yeah.
And the problem, as you described it also, a lot of young people, all of us have problems. We have situations. We have our doubts. We have self-esteem issues. Once a person becomes the drug addict, those issues really get out of control. So mental health, we call it co-occurring, where they're a drug user and they have depression, self-esteem or something, they have a mental issue. And so even if it wasn't manifested before the drug use, it comes out after the drug use. And when I was a kid, underage, we would go to each other's house and sneak a beer out of the refrigerator. All right.
Right.
Well, they don't do that today. Today they go to each other's house, and as Rose said,
Party ball
they
mix.
they bring pills that their mom, but their grandfather who died 2 years ago, who had cancer and was on pain pills, they bring his pills, and they don't really get addicted right off, and that gives them this feeling of immortality. They take it a couple times, they take it a few more times, and then one day they wake up with the flu, and they take one of the pills. They're not on heroin yet. They take a pill and it cures the flu. They don't have the flu. They're dope sick. And all of a sudden, even though they may have been doing this for 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, sporadically, suddenly they've crossed the line physically so that without this, they become dope sick. And that's when they start going and getting the pill every day. And that's when they eventually cannot afford getting the pill every day. And they turn to heroin because it keeps them from getting dope sick. So sometimes by this time, they're not taking it to get high. They're taking it to get normal. And that's how wicked and how addictive and how sneaky this drug is.
How much does a habit cost?
Anywhere from $5 to $300 a day for
And
heroin.
what do they find themselves doing? I would imagine some of them can work. Some of them can
Right.
maintain an
Right.
apartment and a job.
If they've got the heroin in their system, they can go to work and not have no problems. If they're dope sick, they're in and out of the bathroom the whole time. The one problem that we are having in Cincinnati, Ohio, is we've been having to send a lot of them out of state to free rehabs because there is no place. The first thing we have them do is we help them to get on the Medicaid. And once they get on the Medicaid, if we pay for the doctor's visits and everything until they get on the Medicaid. We get them on the Medicaid. We have doctors in Hamilton, Middletown.
But what from a standpoint of getting the money, when they're still in addiction, how are they paying for that?
A lot of them have turned to prostitution, theft. My son, it was stealing credit cards. Some kids, they go and steal gift cards, and they resell them gift cards to the dealers, and that's how they get their stuff. Now, there's a lot of kids that they're not taking the Suboxone, but they go to Suboxone clinics to get the Suboxone, and they give it to the dealer because it goes for $20 a strip on the streets. Okay? And he gives them $20 worth of heroin. And then, they resell it. So, but he don't give them the market price of 20. He'll give them 10 per strip, and he'll sell it to the other kids that don't want heroin. No, I just needed some Suboxone to make it through work today. So he'll resell it to them for 20. See, that's the problem. A lot of it's being abused because doctors aren't doing what they're supposed to do. They have to make sure they go through a certified doctor that is going to do the drug testing, take care of them, make them, if you want to get on medications to get off the drug, you need to do your NA meetings. Those are the most important thing to do in your part of your recovery. And the doctors that we work with, they require that you do 2 meetings a week. So we have meeting places and places these kids can go to get to these meetings.
Let's talk about the recovery process in a very organized manner.
Okay.
Someone has called. They have gone through the program. They are now back on the streets. And when I say back on the streets, I'm not talking about engaged
Right.
in prostitution or illegal criminal activities.
Right.
What I mean is that they are now back in their community.
Right.
What happens now?
Okay, now the ones that we got in recovery, they're starting to finally come home and get out of recovery. Now, some of them are homeless, so heroin recovery for you, like New Foundations, the ARC program, they have an intake program, but New Foundations, Cat House, Transitions, will pay for their first couple weeks till they get a job. We'll pay for them until they get a job.
Heroin recovery for you will pay for
Yes,
that.
we pay for their to get into a place to live instead of being back on the streets. And then they get a job, and then they start paying the weekly rent themselves.
And
So-
that's what makes heroin recovery for you different. That and my group, we actually do information, but heroin recovery for you deals with the addicts, getting them into the treatment, and then getting them help once they get home. Because what happens, a lot of things at home, the stress and the problems and the people are triggers.
Yes.
So that's why, as Rose said, we're trying to make sure we have some kind of help once they get here. And that's what she's doing that's different than a lot of the other people.
We follow them all the way through, totally. Once they, when they get out of the recovery, and if they go back to their own natural environment of their house or whatever, then we send them to recovery meeting in Milford, Ohio, behind Angelo's. It's a certified place. If they're in Cincinnati or any part of Ohio, we have a guy that is got group right here in Walnut Hills, and he's going to be opening up a group in a CLA museum, because a CLA museum and institute on Victory Parkway, he's going to have NA meetings there for all the kids that's coming back. So we make sure that they get to every process they need to get to, all the steps through. And if they come back to us and say, I'm starting to get the urges, I'm starting to worry, then we sit there and say, okay, we've got a couple doctors you can go to. You can go over to the Vivitrol shot, which it blocks the opiates. It gets rid of the cravings, the temptations, everything. And I try to explain to some of these kids that, everyone in their life has an addiction to something. Mine is my bottle of Pepsi and my cigarettes. They're still no-nos. But heroin, kids that's hooked on heroin or opiates, we have kids that's hooked on cough syrup. But everybody
And this
has
is
an
a
addiction
long-term-
problem. Yes.
Long-term recovery. You can't just give up. The one example I give people, myself personally, I have diabetes. I've been on medication for 4 years. I watch my diet. I try to move a little bit more than I used to. But if I'm on diabetes medicine for another 4 years, my doctor's not going to tell me I'm doing it wrong. I did this to myself. I ate too much and I didn't move enough. Okay, it was my fault. But I have a long-term medical program that I'm part of. And unfortunately, the addicts that we're dealing with, the reality is we're going to have, some of them are going to be taking medication for the rest of their life. Maybe some will take it 2, 3, 4 years. But the addiction, they will always be an addict. They're going to have to
Right.
work the rest of their life not to go back. And that's why
Right.
what she's talking about, these programs, why we're trying to help them when they first get home.
Right. When they get home, we tell them, your NA meetings are very important. It gets you away from the enablers. It gets you in a new environment of people that are like you, that, you can call each other when you have problems. You can go to these meetings. If they do the 12-step program and go through these meetings, like the recovery meeting that's out in Milford, a couple of them guys has been there 40, 50 years. I'm not going to quit going to these meetings. I want to go to these meetings. It keeps me in with the right group of people.
Exactly.
If you have to go back into your own environment, then you need these meetings so that you keep the right group of people. And these groups of people, hey, we're all going canoeing this weekend. They combine with each other as best friends of real friends.
That's their support network.
Right.
Okay. But let me ask you this, and I don't know, because we have not talked about educational degrees
Right.
and so forth and so on, but my suspicion is that this is not an organization that is managed or run by MSWs and
Right.
all of those titles and so forth and
Right.
so on. This sounds to me like a grassroots effort
Yes.
started by a mother who lost her son.
Right. And it's a group of mothers that now we are all combining together in Ohio, and they are coming onto the page and helping us because we've gotten so big that we can work with each kid individually if we have to.
Ron, how can listeners support the efforts of Heroin Doesn't Care, Heroin Recovery for You, and other programs? How can listeners support?
The first thing is talk. When you talk, you're an advocate. Educate yourself a little bit. Understand that probably just about everything you know about addiction and heroin addiction is probably wrong. It was for me. This is not a poor person's disease. That I've seen people from wonderful families who have gone to church all their life lose children to this disease, and some of them, as Rose said earlier, they had an operation, they had an injury, they wound up on pain pills, and when the pain pills ran out, and eventually they do, they had actually become addicted to opiates, and eventually they wind up overdosing of a heroin overdose. So knowing if you have pain pills from a doctor from 2 years ago when you went to get a root canal or something, take those to the police and drop those off. They don't need to be in your home because somebody's going to wind up finding them. Little things, educate yourself, and then start talking about it. That is the most important thing we can do. And you can educate yourself by going to Heroin Recovery for You on Facebook, Heroin Doesn't Care on Facebook, and look for, I mean, if you've got the internet, go and put Heroin Support Group and join one to start educating yourself and learning about this.
Right. We have one group that is ran. They are part of us now. They're Ohio, Kansas, Cincinnati. It's called Let's Talk Addiction. You know, we have everything on Heroin Recovery for You. If they want to learn about the Vivitrol, if they've got someone that's, you know, starting to smoke marijuana, okay, we have our uncut video on there. Please, you know, watch this with your child to see what a mother is going through. Because everybody has an addiction problem in life and they need help.
Let's talk about marijuana. I'm glad you brought that up. All over the country, we are hearing, if not daily, certainly monthly, that somebody else is saying, okay, we're going to legalize marijuana in our state. I am from the old school, and I grew up hearing that marijuana was the gateway drug. How do you feel about legalization of marijuana in this society?
Everybody will give their different opinions, so I'm going to let Ron go first.
Okay.
Well, when I was a young man, and this is going to give my age away, we used to, if a person had a joint, put him in jail for 25 years.
Yeah.
Well, then all you do is fill the jails up with guys who had a joint. I mean, 25 years is a long time. So we've made it less punishment to fit the crime. In other words, we're not going to put somebody with a marijuana joint in jail for 25 years. One of the problems we run into now, because it is unpoliced, there are no standards in marijuana production, is a lot of the dealers who are dealing it are actually putting fentanyl in the with the marijuana, which it's a type of opium. It's considered an opium stretcher actually that they cut with, and it will addict you to heroin. Now, why in the world would they do that? Because the belief in Mexico is, where the cartels are, is that if America legalizes marijuana, we're going to be out of business. So we better get them all hooked on heroin. So I am for, I don't think we should put people in jail because they got a needle in their pocket, not for long term, because that just is counterproductive. We will not arrest our way out of this. So when it comes to marijuana, you're hanging around with the right people to do other drugs. So I do see the understanding of the gateway. I'm just so old that it's hard for me to imagine legalizing marijuana. But it's also hard for me to justify not somehow making it less of a problem because now 11% they say people don't get addicted to marijuana. About 11% exhibit addictive behavior. So whether or not they're physically addictive, they're emotionally addicted. But so I'm actually kind of up in the air on that part because I don't know what's going to happen if we legalize it, Rose.
Okay, a lot of people, I go both ways. Medical marijuana, my husband has multiple sclerosis. There are kids that have diseases that they found out that it is helping them and curing them. So they're moving to these states that are legal. So medical marijuana, to me, should be legalized. My opinion with it being a gateway or anything, with it being laced and everything like Ron says, that's a different story. Now, if it's legalized in Ohio and it is grown all natural the way God intended, then I don't see a problem with them going and doing that. Because like the opiates of heroin, you have to put chemicals and everything to get it done. And if God put it on this earth, why are we making things go wrong with it? It could be a gateway to certain people. Everybody has a trigger in their mind that it's alcohol or, like the one kid found out that he's addicted to this cough syrup. Everybody has a gateway in their head. I'm supposed to be on Ritalin because I'm ADHD. I'm afraid to take it because that might be my gateway. So everybody has an addiction problem in life. They just don't want to admit it. Just because it's legal, this Pepsi's killing me. The cigarettes are killing me.
Well, if you get up in the morning and you say, I have to have a cup of coffee, well, you're addicted to caffeine.
Thank you.
Okay, you got to drink caffeine to feel normal. So you're not going to go out and rob a bank over it, but it is to give you even cigarettes, to give you some idea of what the people who are addicted deal with.
My opinion on the gateway drug, I always would say I'd rather my kids smoke marijuana than drink alcohol.
Yes.
Or, do heroin or whatever. So I didn't really have a problem with it. I don't know that I would think that it would be the gateway drug more so than I feel that the people that they hang around with doing it is what leads them to the other drugs, not marijuana itself. For example, a lot of times those people will bring in Percocets,
Right.
and then they have Percocets that high's better than the marijuana. So in that aspect, it would be a gateway drug for that. But in my experience with seeing people being addicted to heroin, probably 90% started with marijuana and drinking.
Right.
Little parties after, on the weekends after with their high school friends and stuff. And then it just gets carried away because they want more and more and more. So I'm seeing people thinking it's cool to do the Percocets now.
Yes.
Rather than the marijuana. It's just, they want to fit in, so they try it. And then, they want to be a part of that group. So to me, it's not, marijuana's not the gateway to the heavier stuff. It's the people that are around.
The problem with the marijuana today is it is getting laced with everything to get kids addicted.
And with that, we're going to have to bring today's program to an end. Maybe in the spring we can come together again when you get ready to have your annual spring event and talk more. I'd like to talk about the draconian laws that had people who had one joint incarcerated for life. There are stories of people who had one joint and they were incarcerated for life. So we need to talk about the mentality of a society that would condone, allow that to happen. Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's so much that we need to talk about, but
So
time
much.
is running out for today. And I would like to thank Ron Calhoun, who is with Heroin Doesn't Care and has aligned himself with Rose Christian and Michelle Weber, who are with Heroin Recovery for You. I'm Jerome Manigan, and thank you for tuning in to Community Connections.